Hello, my dear friends. I'm happy to welcome everyone watching Sotnik-TV today. It's 7:50 p.m. Moscow time, moving straight into our main news program. On Saturday, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, signed several new amendments into law amending the constitution, allowing him to run for another presidential term. The next stage of these amendments needs approval by the country's constitutional court. Over the last week, the bill was approved by the state parliament, as well as the regional parliaments. Of course, it was approved. Now the constitutional court will deliberate over the amendments and decide whether they comply with the current Russian law. Putin continues to rush through. He is obsessed with the idea of remaining head of state indefinitely. To this day, inside Russia, he behaves like a typical insane dictator. All protesters with picket signs were dispersed today in Moscow. Those who were dedicated to the protest against Putin starting his presidential term from zero yet again. Watch how this happens next. Just so you know, they are now assaulting people inside police buses. You can hear him screaming. He's just some old man, what are you doing? Why are you detaining him? Fellow citizens, this is an unauthorized assembly. Thus, you need to disperse in order not to interrupt the people's passage. Your rally was not permitted. A man was handing out flyers. He was detained as well as those he handed the flyers to. Step aside, you are interfering with the police. Look guys, he is disabled. Don't touch him.
Уважаемые граждане, ваше мероприятие не согласовано. Просьба разойтись. Уважаемые граждане, ваше мероприятие не согласовано.
Let me address our Russian citizenry. I am Lev Ponomarev, the head of the All-Russian Movement for Human Rights. Today is the day when the unconstitutional regime by Putin begins to fall. He is committed to a state takeover. I joined all of the young picketers who have participated today. Such way of protest is totally legal and granted by the Russian Constitution. Until now, no single picket lines weren't dispersed in Moscow. Today's planned protest by Moscow FSB headquarters didn't take place. They detained all who attended. That means the type of repression is changing, and mostly for the worse. Young people are now at considerable risk. But I guess that these young people on this bus have the burden of starting the process of overthrowing Putin's regime. That will go on. That was Lev Ponomarev, a civil activist. He was detained in Moscow today. Vladimir Putin restarts his presidency amid the coronavirus spreads. He changes the constitution for his own benefit and bans any protest rallies. Donald Trump lowers the interest rate on student loan payouts. He is supporting the nation's small business with a $50 billion stimulus plan, which shall include cancellation of tax on wages for the year 2020 and will provide access to free medical care for those infected with the coronavirus. Meanwhile, people in Russia who get infected will receive almost nothing. For what it's worth, this can help us to understand how the world can be changed by dramatic events, and how our world will never be the same. One of such global events is the coronavirus pandemic, which clearly demonstrates how fragile our world truly is, and how unsafe each of us is in reality. That should change our attitudes to life, by either raising its value or dropping mankind into the pit of legalized and institutionalized nihilism. Unlike the Russian authorities, Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, was sincere and openly declared the following during his recent speech: "Let me be honest with people of Britain. Many families will lose loved ones before their time." End of quote. The British government has announced a global pandemic outbreak within 10 to 14 weeks. The first stage of the Formula One in Australia has been cancelled due to the coronavirus pandemic, and so is Canada Figure Skating Championship. By the way, the wife of Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, has tested positive with the coronavirus and is now quarantined. She says she's okay though. The massive capital exodus has been going on in Russia for 2 weeks now. That took $590 million during the past week. The week before, that took $710 million. The country with the most of those infected patients per million citizens is now Italy. 250 people out of a million are now infected there. Then Norway comes in second with 161 confirmed cases. Up next is South Korea with 155, Denmark with 135.5, Iran with 135.3, Bahrain with 116, Switzerland with 100. The rest of the countries have less than 100 infected citizens per million. China has 56, by the way. The situation is beginning to improve in China. Yet no one believes the numbers provided by Russia, as the data is clearly manipulated. How to protect yourself from the coronavirus, what measures can be taken to reduce the chance of infection. I discussed that with Sergey Shkuratov, the honored coach of Russia, who now resides in France. Next, let's see his tips that will be most useful for us all. My name is Sergey Shkuratov. I'm honored to coach for Russia. My great interests have always been microbiology, and now I'm studying the coronavirus. So I have a few suggestions. In what ways can one protect themselves other than locking ourselves inside a bunker, as not all of us can afford that? Other than quarantine, please suggest some basic rules to follow for those who are trying to stay as safe as possible. Well, my first advice is actually strict quarantine and trying to stay out of people and animals. According to the latest studies, cats spread the virus, although the first case of catching the virus from a dog has been registered. We are sure that cats have ACE2 protein receptors that allows the virus to infiltrate into the human body. First of all, that infiltrates into the intestine, lungs, or both. During the asymptomatic period, the virus breathes inside the intestine, as that's where the receptor can be located in abundance. The receptor may be higher in some people due to genetic predisposition. If you are a smoker or take some sort of blood pressure medication. For example, Captrapel contains a lot of that protein that helps the virus to infiltrate and to breed. The best way to prevent possible infection, as I said before, isolate and reduce human contact. On the other hand, the mucous membranes are the entry points for this virus. This means people's eyes, mouth, nose, and I would also recommend avoiding scratching inside your pants. To keep the virus away from your body, it's recommended to secure these areas. Once you go outside, stay away from people. According to the recent studies by China, a distance of 4.5 to 5 meters is considered safe enough. If you see a person that has signs of infection, try to avoid such person and move away. Don't try and offer assistance. Go the opposite way from such a person or switch to another side of the street, or do something of the sort. Mass places pose the most of the danger now. Such places are things like stores, stadiums, and so on. When should we expect the largest coronavirus outbreak in Europe and in Russia? The situation in Europe is quite alarming. I have friends all over Europe. There's quite a disaster going on in Italy. A friend of mine described the details to me yesterday. Her son is a paramedic and spoke of awful things. Today in her town by the sea they have even begun to wash and sanitize highways. The virus is spreading rapidly there, and here in France also. I see fewer and fewer people on the streets. They avoid each other and are showing less joy and warmth each passing day. Some of the products vanish from stores. The people of France have begun to realize this calamity is here to stay for a long time to come. What about Russia? I stay in touch with Russians as well. Some of them are saying I'm overreacting. They're so sure that Russians are the strongest people in the world. Yet they must listen to me and try to take measures to stay safe. Here's my advice for those staying in Russia. Those young and healthy have a good chance of overcoming this pandemic, but they still may catch a virus and carry that. According to the recent studies, the asymptomatic cases can take up to 40 days to be tested negative, not only 14 as was thought before. So, 35 to 40 days is the term within which one needs to worry. You need to avoid visiting your elders. The risk for old people becoming infected is very high. The elderly suffer severely from this virus. Sergey, thank you so much for your advice. I really worry about Russia as the situation there is in fact worse than reported. There is a chance that it will result in a complete catastrophe. So be careful and take all the measures possible. That was the advice by Sergey Shkuratov, the honored coach of Russia. So here's some brief preventive instructional information. Let us go over it one more time. We suppose you have already stockpiled food for a couple of months. First, stay home. You should go only to your balcony once it's isolated. Leave your house only after all precautionary measures have been taken. Once inside, leave as infrequently as possible. Stay home. Maintain distance from other people. 4.5 to 5 meters is considered safe. Try to keep from smoking, as that weakens your body dramatically. It also increases your risk of catching the coronavirus. In case of a major problem and you need to leave the house, try to monitor what is happening around you at all times. Stay away from people and animals. Keep 5 meters distance. Once you see a sick person, move away. Get 10 meters past him or turn around and leave. Avoid touching things with your hands or clothes. Keep from using public transport. Protect your eyes, nose, mouth, ears. Cover any possible wounds or scabs. After you enter the house, take the outerwear off by the door and don't take it any further. I would also recommend to regularly wipe your smartphones or the rest of your electronic devices. Use soap when washing your hands. Try using antibacterial soap where possible. Avoid any mass events. Staying in quarantine is recommended. That's it for today. The world is changing and so is Russia. I once warned you that the regime would take off its mask and bare its beast snout, like you've never ever seen before. That's exactly what's going on now. See for yourselves. They will murder you with lies and the coronavirus. Either from street violence outbreaks or from their comfortable office chairs. They aren't some invisible virus. They can be observed quite well. And they lack any morality. As well as their chief Vladimir Putin, they have something to lose. That makes them fight to the end. And unlike you, they are armed to the teeth. We will continue to monitor events and thanks to our Patreon supporters, we will try to improve the broadcast quality and increase the amount of content on the channel. Meanwhile, please support us on Patreon and take care of yourselves if it's still possible. I'll see you next week. Please stay healthy.